This work session regular meeting of the Township Council is called to order. Madam Master Clerk.
In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of the State of New Jersey, adequate notice of this work session regular meeting of the Franklin Township Council was made by the posting on the front doors of the municipal building, posted on the Township's website, and electronically transmitted to the officially designated newspapers indicating that this work session regular meeting would take place via WebEx at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, January 26, 2021.
If we could say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, to the republic
for which
for which it stands,
One
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilwoman Kimberly Francois, if you could do the invitation, please.
As we gather here today, as members of the Township Council, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas and on those things upon which future generations can build with confidence. Let us continue to strive to make Franklin Township and to make a better world. Amen.
Amen. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Embarson,
Here.
Councilman Chase,
Here.
Councilwoman Francois,
Here,
Councilman Galtieri,
Here.
Mayor Kramer,
Here.
Councilman Onijaka, Councilwoman Pruitt,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Here.
Councilman Wright.
Here.
We're on to item number 5, commendations and proclamations. Let's start with, we'll go in reverse order. Councilman Amberson, the Tamil Language and Culture Month.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a quick proclamation. Obviously, I come from India. India is a vast nation. It's got 29 states and 8 union territories, officially 22 languages in the country, very diverse, about 1.3 million people. I come from a state called Tamil Nadu, which is the southernmost state, and the people there speak Tamil, which I also speak. It's my mother tongue. English is my second language, by the way. Anyway, we have a very famous, very popular person in the US whose mother is from the same state and spoke Tamil, and that would be our new Vice President, Kamala Harris. Proud to say that she is from our state and our heritage. And this month is a very special month for all the Tamil-speaking people because we celebrate the good harvest by the farmers. So it's a very special month, and we want to recognize that and kind of let the people know about the culture. Proclamation goes, whereas the Tamil community of Franklin Township has made significant contributions to our township's diverse culture and population, including preserving and promoting the rich heritage of the Tamil language. And whereas the New Jersey Tamil community is dedicated to promoting the fullness of the Tamil culture and literature in part through language schools designated to educate young people and preserve the Tamil language for future generations. And whereas the Tamil language is widely spoken in India, Singapore, and Sri Lanka, and many communities throughout our nation and world, this language is central to Tamil identity and is recognized as one of the world's longest surviving written and spoken language. And whereas Tamil traditions, language, and heritage have impacted many aspects of the economic, social, and cultural history of our state and nation, And whereas during January, members of the Tamil community celebrate Thai Pongal, a 4-day harvest that coincides with the first day of the month Thai in Tamil calendar. And whereas the Township of Franklin joins in celebrating Thai Pongal and in recognizing the Tamil community for their ongoing contributions to our township. Now, therefore, we, Ram Anbarasan, Councilman at Large, and Philip Kramer, Mayor of the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, State of New Jersey, on behalf of the Township Council and the citizens of the Township of Franklin, do proclaim January 2021 as Tamil Language and Culture Month in the Township of Franklin and commend its observance to all citizens. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. The next item is for Councilman Chase, brought to us by Councilman Chase, the retirement of George Luck Jr., Chief of the Kingston Volunteer Fire Company.
We, Theodore Chase Jr., Councilman First Ward, and Philip Kramer, Mayor of the Township of Franklin in the County of Somerset and State of New Jersey, on behalf of the Township Council and all residents of the Township of Franklin, do hereby extend to Chief George T. Luck Jr. appreciation, congratulations, and commendation for exemplary leadership upon the occasion of his retirement as Chief of the Kingston Volunteer Fire Department, number 1, after serving 4 separate terms for a total of 23 years as chief over the course of more than 54 years of fire service. And he's continuing as a volunteer.
Mr. McQueen, I see that he is on. Can we give him the opportunity to speak?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. He is unmuted at this time. George, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just want to thank you very much for the commendation. It's been a real pleasure for me to serve the community, and I just want to thank my wife and family for all their support, and for all the volunteers in Franklin Township that provide public safety 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They all should be commended for their service, but I thank you very much. I'm humbled by the commendation.
Thank you for your service, Chief Luck. Okay, we're on to public discussion. Do I have a motion to open to the public?
Mr. Mayor, before we begin, did you want me to make a statement or?
Oh, that's right. You had a statement, yes.
Yep. Okay. Mr. Mayor, I just want to reach out to the residents and thank them for their participation in the special hearing 2 weeks ago regarding the proposed park at Willow and New Brunswick Road, and thank them for their feedback and speaking up and being open with us about their concerns. I will start by saying I have heard you loud and clear, and at this point, I am not proceeding with asking council to change the consider changing the I guess the title or the usage of the land from passive to recreation, thereby also stopping any progress or any further consideration of a park. So this is a prime example of the process working as intended. This was something that was brought up back in a study from a consultant back in 2012 or leading up to 2012, and then several residents had asked about what the status of that was, and I brought it to the various open committees or various committees in open public meetings. It went to the committees on council, and there were periodic updates given throughout the process during committee reports by council. The final step is bringing it to the public and listening to the public's comments. That is, and as we heard, the residents had some concerns about this, reservations, and did not want us to proceed, which is what we're following. So the process worked. However, what I want to say is it was good feedback also that we've received. We know that intersection is a problem. We've already been watching it over the past couple of years, and we're going to take the feedback given and continue to look to do improvements. Some will be done in spring, as well as others will be done in, we'll continue to monitor after that through our Traffic Safety Bureau. There was some feedback that we received that some of the existing parks could be used for, could use new equipment, like was being proposed. And it just happens Dunham Labed is scheduled this year to have a rebuild of equipment just be and life. So we'll be able to try to incorporate some of the equipment proposed and see if that's a possibility to use in that park there. It's also an opportunity for me to reach out to the county commissioners and see if they're willing to maybe improve the Quailbrook Park to make it more usable or entice people to want to come and visit. And Mr. Vornlocker and I have already looked at possibly seeing if we could do a crosswalk between Hexham and the park to make it a little bit, try to improve safety and crossing for the residents. And finally, one of the last items that was mentioned is maintenance of our parks. So that's something that I know will be on the forefront of my agenda for the year as well. Other members consider that so that we can entice residents to want to come out to the parks that we already have and focus on that. So again, thank you to all the residents. I heard you loud and clear. We are not proceeding with that. I want to emphasize that this project is ultimately is stopped and there will be no further actions to be taken. So thank you for participating in the process and helping us understand your concerns. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Now do we have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of opening to the public, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We are open to the public. We will allow speaking for 3 minutes. The beeping you will hear will be the cell phone of our clerk, letting you know that the 3 minutes are up, not her phone ringing. No yielding of time. State your name and address, and you may only come up once. Mr. McQueen.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Anybody from the public wishing to speak, we ask that you open the chat window, use the raise hand feature. If you are dialed in by phone, you may press *3. We do ask that when you're done speaking, you lower your hand or press *3 to lower your hand. We have Benjamin Guy wishing to speak. I am going to unmute you. Mr. Guy, you are unmuted.
Okay. Benjamin Guy, 35 Patton Drive. I was calling in reference to a couple of topics because we're past all the election stuff. Now I want to actually just get some updates on where we were as a township. One is I heard a lot of developments about a question directly is about workforce development. We were working on a workforce development project idea. I was trying to get an update from the town council about where we were with that currently during this period of time frame and what the thought process was with going forward. Second portion is in reference to rental assistance program. I was trying to see if we closed out one with the community block grant recently before, and I was trying to see because the government, federal government is going to be relisting that specific portion again. Are we going to be looking at doing that as another second tier with that during this period of time frame, and how the success went on the last rental assistance program? Third question directly is in reference to the COVID spending, CARES Act funding. Is there an accurate depiction on what we actually spent the money on in the township directly right now? And exactly if we're going to get additional CARES Act, what are we looking at purposing the money for going forward? Fourth question directly is in reference to current community block grant funding. I guess we're going into submission periods, and because organizations are affected, I was trying to see whether or not we were extending the actual reporting period and actually for community block funding during this period of time frame, because the state budgets had been adjusted based on when they were actually operating, and I wanted to see whether or not we were being consistent with with that reporting. And then the last two questions were a reference to the master plan. I had asked this question, and I know Mr. Hilly's here currently right now. Was there any updates to the master plan or over the last year and a half that we can disclose to the public and actually go over that specifically? And then if The last question is in reference to redistricting. Again, we're going to go into this election cycle with the census and seasons, and I want to know whether or not there's any additional talks or anything else going on with redistricting, specifically down by Franklin Park and the south part of Franklin Township, so that people can understand exactly what they might be in reference to going forward at all. So those are my basic questions at this specific time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. If you could lower your hand, that would be helpful.
Perhaps we can tackle those during the manager's comments if he has responses to them. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Anybody else wishing to speak, please use the chat function and raise hand feature or *3. Mr. Mayor, I do not see anybody else wishing to speak at this time.
Okay, I agree with you. I don't either. Do we have a motion to close public portion?
So moved.
Motion. Second.
Second motion and a second. All in favor of closing public portion, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We're going to, next item is council comments. In screen order. Mr. Wright, you go first.
Councilman, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had one committee that I want to report on that was rather important to us as a township and to me personally. And that's the redevelopment agency meeting that was held last night. Councilwoman Francois and I were sworn in as commissioners last night, which we do every year as members of the council. My basic discussion that I want to bring up is that we discussed the next phase of the project by RPM with our May developer. Excuse me, everybody wants to call at the wrong moment. Where was I? There were certain issues that I had with the amount of open space in certain areas within the next phase of the RPM project. For the amount of residents that would be housed in that particular area, I believe that the land space would not be adequate to allow the residents recreation. The example, if you gave us a half acre of landscaping, a half acre site with landscaping that can contain walkways, benches, trails, buffers, that would leave us with a small, sizable area to play in. Now, when I say play in, it was mentioned that, tossing the ball, things of that nature, small stuff. I was thinking more of an area where you could actually stretch out a little bit, touch football, a little bit of half-court soccer, frisbee area, just enough room so that you would be able to play, not just walk around, but play. That was my main issue, and there are several sites that were planned in the area, which I'm happy. I'm happy about that. But it was just that in certain areas, in my opinion, were just not adequate. The residents would not walk across the street and then walk 4 blocks to Neiman Williams Park because Franklin Boulevard is a major thoroughfare here in Franklin Township. So that's a non-starter, period. That would be the largest area as a park. I believe it was the grandparents' issue, where the residents came and complained that they didn't need a park. They needed open space. Well, I'm complaining. We need open space. Now, the ordinance that's coming up for first reading later on would be ordinance 4336.21, which our executive director, Mark Healy, is on for that to answer any questions. That would allow, because of the redevelopment area plan, required 20% open space, I believe. But I'll leave that to him to further expand upon. I am an open space guy. I believe in open space. I won't lie about it. I won't take any shame on it. I believe in it. The more open space we have, the better off we are. The residents deserve it, and I believe in pushing it whenever possible. Middlebush Park is a perfect example. You need space. Kids need space. Parents need space. Livable space. But that's just me. I don't speak for the other commissioners on that, on the agency. I just speak for me. So I want to point that out. That's just me. But after thinking about it, we're kind of stuck. We're going to go through the other phases with open space in mind. I would hope that's what we do, and from what I see of the plans, that's something that's there. So I am not totally in love with this, but there are some things that, well, that's the end of the redevelopment agency report as it is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Councilwoman Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to report out some information from the public safety meeting. Just want to let people know that, and you may have seen it on our agenda today, but the police department is engaging with the My Brother's Keeper program. It is a mentorship program that was born out of the Obama Foundation. They will be posting information on their website and through social media on how residents can apply for the program. So keep in mind and keep your eye out, social media and their website. They will also be posting their general orders on their website this year. Also, as we move into Black History Month, they plan on having a virtual Black History Month hosted by the Community Relations Bureau. So information on that is pending, and keep an eye out on the website and social media for that. As of February 1st, the department will have 11 vacancies. So if you have friends or loved ones with an interest of serving as an officer, please encourage them to apply. We also have promotions. Just give me 1 second. Coming up, we will have, I believe, additional sergeants being promoted. And lastly, the department is continuing with their Tuesday night talks. This month's was on body cameras, and it was also an introduction to Sergeant Leah and the rest of the Community Relations Bureau. And their next Tuesday night talk will be March 2nd. So if you're interested, put that on your calendars. We also had Nope, that's actually it for public safety. And that is actually all I have. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Pruitt, Councilwoman Khalil.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I'd like to say to Councilman Ron Aberonson, Councilman Ron, thank you for that proclamation. That was very nice. I was not aware of the Tamil language and culture and tradition and how that applied to our new Vice President, Kamala Harris. That was very, very enlightening. Thank you for that. I also would like to comment on the RPM ordinance that we discussed at redevelopment last night. If we do nothing and not adopt the ordinance, what will happen is the current density in the ordinance that we currently have allows for 50 units per acre. This new ordinance reduces that almost in half to 28 units per acre. It also allows for 80% market rate units and 20% affordable units as well. And it also allows for 20% open space throughout that area. So if we do nothing, we're stuck with a whole lot of density in that area. So I think, although I agree with Councilman Wright, he's been a champion for that area, the 4th Ward, the redevelopment area. He's championed the cause. We've worked with RPM for like the last 3 years to get that down to where it is now in this new agreement. And I'd like to commend our councilman. Less is more. I know he wants more, but I think, he did a good job of getting us to where we are today with the ordinance. And the other thing I wanted to comment on is the park. I didn't think the park was needed from Jump Street, quite honestly, but I needed to hear from the residents. We all needed to hear from the residents. And by hearing from the residents, that helped me to solidify my opinion, because obviously I don't know everything. So I want to say to the residents of Franklin, we heard you loud and clear, and we have taken your input under advisement, and we will not go further with that park. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And thank you for messing up the councilman's name, so I'm not the only one who does it.
I call him wrong, so what can I say?
Speaking of which, Councilman Ambarasan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're making a lot of progress. It's a year, so. Anyway, I have a very short update. In place of Councilwoman Pruitt, I attended the Senior Advisory Council meeting this week. We had a number of subjects that they discussed. The highlights would be, I think they're trying to figure out a way to communicate with the members and the people in that age group. I believe the phone chain doesn't really work very well. So I think we are trying to figure out another way of keeping everybody in communications. So Boo is, trying to come up with some other better ways of doing that. And there was a bit of a discussion about COVID shots, especially the seniors. There's a lot of confusion in the community. And I think we owe it ourselves to inform our people what the right process is, in terms of getting the first shot, second shot, where, how. I see that we have put up a lot of information from the state and the county in our website. I think that should clarify some of these questions. But getting an appointment for a shot, I think I had an easier time climbing the Himalayas last summer. It is a tough order to get an appointment, and happy to report that I was able to get one for this Friday in a Riverside medical group up in Belleville. So they had shots available, so I was able to hit them at the right window, and I kind of transmitted that information to a number of people that had asked me about that. And I think some of the new programs Marian was reporting out, yoga, they're about yoga. It's about 40 people have registered. Mindfulness is another 27 people. And then there's more programs that are coming up in February. I also attended a financial oversight committee yesterday. I'm sure one of you would report out on that. Our human HRC meeting is scheduled for tomorrow. We are going to have Mary Clark, the Franklin school systems spokesperson, is going to be the speaker. She's going to update us on the plan for the school in the COVID era, about what the school is planning to do, how to move forward. And last but not least, on Saturday last week, there was a inauguration of JFK statue on JFK Boulevard, opposite to the Kmart Plaza. Now that plaza is going to be called JFK Plaza. There's a nice statue of JFK and his son from a very famous picture, and there's a lot of nice historically significant photos on the memorial. It was unveiled by Assemblyman Danielson, and the program was emceed by our own Bill Grippo. It was a good event. About 30-40 people turned up, including our Councilman Vasanella. That's all I've got. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Chase. You're muted, Councilman.
I unmute and I mute, and next time I look, it's back to muted again.
The world's out to get you, Councilman.
We haven't had any committee meetings that I attend since our last meeting. We should have a land use committee meeting scheduled tomorrow, although I haven't heard from the manager as to whether we will have one. I do want to call the public's attention to the Environmental Commission meeting next Monday, February 1st. We are having a speaker named Eunice Wong, who's an expert on gas-powered leaf blowers in terms of both the air pollution that they cause and the noise pollution. She spoke recently to a well-attended meeting of the Princeton Environmental Commission, and one of our members attended that meeting and thought it would be good to hear her. And in general, we want to encourage more participation by the public in environmental commission meetings. So that meeting and the instructions for getting to listen to that meeting and participate on the same basis that one can participate in council meetings should be available on the township website, probably under the Environmental Commission page. In terms of, with respect to the park or non-park, I would hope that we can plant some trees to replace the ones that fell in the hurricane and created an open space there, in line with our need to have more trees to absorb more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and recreate a natural environment with indigenous trees, rather than the present situation of a lot of honeysuckle and privet that's there now. So I hope that we can do that, as well as doing what we can to make the intersection of Willow and New Brunswick Road safer, since we heard a great deal from the public about that. And I was very happy that we could commend Chief Luck tonight, and besides his role as fire chief for Kingston, and for those who don't know, there's a joint between the Franklin side and the South Brunswick side of Kingston, but he's a Franklin resident. He also, from time to time, conducts historical tours of Kingston, where people can learn more about historic events that happens there, such as the conference on horseback between Washington and his staff after the Battle of Princeton, which occurred in what is now the Kingston Cemetery there. So that's another fine thing that Chief Luck has done. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Will go to the.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to reiterate what Councilman Chase just said of thank you to Chief Luck for your years of service and dedication. 23 years as chief and 54 years of service is a long time of dedication and self-sacrifice, and constantly putting yourself at harm to help others. So thank you, Chief, for all your years of dedication. That ties into, we did have a fire prevention board meeting. The hot topic right now is trying to get our volunteer firefighters, our first responders vaccinated. So they are trying to get out as soon as they can and when there's availability. And as Councilman Barrison said, there is difficulty even just finding spots. So that was the large topic of fire prevention. Other than that, I had no other committee meetings this month, as it's been a quieter month, Mr. Mayor. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Charles Onziaka. We can't hear you if you're speaking, Councilman.
Okay.
Councilman, I cannot hear. Oh, there you go.
Okay. Mayor, good evening, sir. I'm still sick right now, and I didn't prepare anything for now, for tonight. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Deputy Mayor Jim Vassanello.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I want to also thank and congratulate Chief Luck on 54 years of service. I notice in Franklin, although we appreciate any amount of volunteer time, any service commission, fire department, anywhere in town we have our volunteers, any amount of time is appreciated. But I notice in Franklin, our volunteers tend to stick around a long time and serve, for this case, decades and decades. And I think it says something about the camaraderie and the commitment of our residents. I attended the Public Safety Committee meeting. Councilwoman Pruitt gave a report on today. Also, since the last council attended meeting of the Board of Trustees of Central Jersey Housing Resource Center. And although they are not doing any in-person counseling or any in-person workshops because of COVID, they are continuing virtually and over the phone with counseling and workshop programs and providing much assistance to people in the areas of affordable housing and financial literacy, reference to housing. And I'm going to just mention one aspect of what they do is help people navigate or review the opportunity to take advantage in a good way of our, make sure I have this right, affordability down payment assistance grant, which is basically using money from our housing trust fund. It's not tax dollars, it's money that the state would take and providing grants that are forgivable. In other words, people do not have to pay it back In tonight's agenda, we'll be giving over $13,000 to a home buyer who otherwise, I can't speak for them, but often home buyers that may not otherwise be able to actually buy a home. And not everyone wants to buy a home, but if you do, it could be very tough, especially in a lower moderate income bracket. So tonight we'll be given a grant, and I'm happy to see another Franklin resident be able to buy a home in our town and utilize this program, which could be a difference between never being able to own your own home and being able to own your own home. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. One of the questions I remembered was about redistricting. Master Clerk. When does redistricting happen?
It will probably happen sometime this year. I'm waiting to hear from the county as to when we start the process.
That would be redistricting of Franklin itself and the wards.
Correct. It's two different processes. We reward and redistrict. Some of the districts probably will be split because some of them are quite large, and I'm not sure about if with the wards, if the lines will move or not.
I'm sure District 12 will be split, and I bet Ward 2 is probably going to have to give up some people even to 3 or 5. Okay. So for my comments, I attended the Financial Oversight Committee where we are going over the budget. We met with the Police Department and the Public Works Department. I'm not going to go over the details. Those will be reviewed when we get to the budget meetings. So I will talk about one item, and that was police body cameras. And clearly, everybody was in favor of that. And so I am confident in predicting that we will be budgeting and acquiring police body cameras this year. Willow Park. Councilman Galtieri said this is the system working. I completely agree with that. He did his due diligence, came up with an idea, and council isn't here just to pass consent agendas. Council is here because we were elected and we move ideas forward. He was approached by people who lived in his development, asking for this kind of park, and for the people who couldn't seem to understand what a grandparent's park is, it's a park where someone who is a grandparent will have something to do with the park, while the toddler will have something to do with the park. It's that simple. He was approached by it. He talked to other people, and they were in favor of it. He went to the various committees, and all of the committees were in favor of it. He went to the land use committee and to discuss it with staff, and the staff gave their input, and an in-house design was developed. I'm abbreviating the process. Went through every step correctly, and then we brought it to the public, and then we heard the public, and the public was loud and clear. We made a decision from that. I made a decision from that. My decision is to not go ahead with the park because it was a pocket park. Pocket parks feed the neighborhood, and what I listened mostly to were the people from the neighborhood. So if the people from the neighborhood don't want a pocket park, then there's no reason to build one. Deputy Mayor Vassanella and I talked about this before. Once there was a pocket park that he wanted, and the community wanted, and we went around and we knocked on doors, and every single door we knocked on said, yeah, we want the park. The very person who kept pushing him to build the park came up at the public hearing and said, we don't want the park. There's no way to predict that. Other than mental telepathy, I do not know how Councilman Galtieri could have done this any better. And I'm proud of council. Our attorneys reminded us that we didn't have to be present at the hearing. But Councilwoman Kimberly Francois spoke out, and I completely agree with her, that we of course wanted to be present. We heard what you said, and we reacted to it. The comments that most struck me were that this is a done deal. Well, clearly we've shown it's not a done deal. It was never a done deal in our mind. We needed to hear what the people are saying. I was not expecting the negativity about it, but that's your right, and we listened to it. And I'm again glad that the process happened and we learned from it. One thing about it that comes out whenever we talk about a park is that we're not using our current parks. So I would like, and I don't know, that might be true. I'm sure, I know it's not true of Middlebush Park, but I would like to task the manager with a study, and it's COVID now, so I don't know that the study would be valid right now, but when the time is right, a study to see how much the parks are used. And that might be as simple as setting up a GoPro for a week at every park, taking a picture every 20 minutes or something, and having someone count the number of people there. But I think it's a valid question, and we should get an answer to that question. And if that's right, then we need to rethink our plan. And if it's wrong, then we have something to go forward on. I also want to say one last thing about it. This was a pocket park, and the local people didn't want it. If this were like Middlebush Park, that's a different story, or Catalpa Park. I understand people in the area don't want it, and that's important, and we need to act to protect them, as I fought to protect the people local to Middlebush Park. But that doesn't mean just because the local people don't want a park that's going to serve the whole town, that we wouldn't build such a park. And Councilman Wright fought for Middlebush Park in that way, and it's one of our most popular things. But I thank people for their input. It's quintessentially American to be skeptical of government. That's great, but I truly think that the comments that it was a done deal were misplaced. Okay. So now let me go on to vaccine update. I've been have my Facebook page up. People have been going to it. I've been commenting about vaccinations. This is paraphrasing something I already put up. The Somerset County Health Department gives out about 700 doses when they have a clinic. They have the capacity to do 1,000 pretty easily, and they could probably go up to 2,000 if they have the doses. They don't get the doses. They're expecting about 700 doses a week. They've asked for 6,500, but the doses just aren't there. Starting today, they were supposed to start giving second doses, about 100 of them. So far, they've received 5,400 doses. They're having 2 clinics a week, and by the end of this week, they will have given out 95% of what they've received. So they're keeping up with the supply. That 5% that they're holding on to is in case the next shipment is late, and people who have gotten their first dose need their second dose. People have asked us if there's going to be a satellite or a site in Franklin. Franklin Township, as far as the current plan, is never going to get vaccine directly to the Franklin Township government. Maybe that will change. I hope it does in the future. But right now, there's no plan for Franklin government to get the vaccine. Anything like that will go to the county. And the county is planning to open up a satellite site in Franklin, currently at Quail Brook, in February. And I cannot stress this next sentence enough. If they get sufficient doses to do it. That's all dependent from the factories to the federal government to the state government to the county. Without the doses, there's nothing to open up. Last week, the Somerset County Health Department used its own schedule scheduling system online because the states wasn't up to speed. So people signed up through the county. They're now going to go over to the state system because the state system is, I'm reluctant to say up to speed, but the state system is up. I'm sorry that there's a moving target. This is a very chaotic situation. Very high demand and very low supply. Hopefully this is going to settle out. There's confusion about getting the second dose if you were vaccinated at RVCC. If you got your first dose by scheduling with the county, then the county should be contacting you to ask you to schedule again when your time is up for that. If you schedule through the state is supposed to email you about your second appointment. I know that's confusing. You may not even remember who got you your dose. So here's the number, 908-231-7155. 908-231-7155. 908-231-7155. That should be fully up. They have 10 lines. I have heard people already say they have to call repeatedly to get it, but you will get to talk to a human, an actual person, and they will help you, walk you through it, and maybe can get some information about your second dose if you're wondering about that. So about a third of the doses are going directly to governments, to counties, and to a few cities, not Franklin. Franklin isn't big enough. The rest is going to hospitals, long-term care facilities, urgent cares, etc. That's where the rest is going. I wanted to know if Franklin, or actually Somerset County, was getting its fair share. So I went on the state dashboard, and there's a tab there for vaccinations. You can pull up that tab, and I did my thing. I plotted the population size versus the number of doses given, and I plotted the number of cases versus doses given. In both of those plots, Franklin was above the line. Not hugely above the line, but above the line. I kept saying Franklin, I'm sorry. Somerset County was above the line. So we're getting our fair share of doses, whether you look at it by cases or by population. There just aren't a lot of doses out there, and that's sad. My sister spent this entire weekend trying to get my mother, who I've proudly announced several times, vaccinated. She's 100 years old, and she's in Connecticut, and it's all Connecticut stuff. And she finally, I'm kind of proud to say, finally her town, my hometown, which is less than 10,000 people in Connecticut, they're getting direct doses. And they're doing it in age order. And it turns out my mother's the oldest person in town, so she's getting one of the first doses. I'm going to be driving to Connecticut to get her there. That's the way Connecticut's doing. From what I understand, they're doing very well compared to other states. But New Jersey, on a list of 59 entities, that's states, territories, and the District of Columbia, New Jersey, when I looked last, was number 13. So that's not super terrific top, but that's not too bad. It's very frustrating. It's a moving target. It's the Wild West out there. If you go to our website, we'll point you to some sites that have links. And unfortunately, what people are doing is just going through the links over and over again, trying to get something. It's not the way that I would want it to be done, but it's a chaotic situation now, and hopefully it will improve as more and more vaccine is available. Sorry that I was long-winded, but I know many people are interested in that. I can find my agenda. Of course, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just to echo what the mayor just said, if you go to the township website, on the main page of our website, both in the spotlight and in the latest news, are links to a kind of a plethora of information related to vaccines here in New Jersey, including that number that the mayor repeated for the county health department for the kind of the live chat line. And they will also assist people who don't have access to a computer to register with the state website for the vaccine. So that being said, I too would like to thank Chief Luck. About 31 years ago this month, I first met George and his wife Carol at an installation dinner. I was there with my wife, and we sat at the same table for the Kingston Fire Company. And I think I am most proud of the fact that I called George friend as opposed to chief. And I am very, very happy for him. And he's been an absolute pillar of the community down in Kingston for not only the fire company, but as Councilman Chase said, many, many other things. And we're very proud to count him among our residents of Franklin. So thank you, George. To answer, maybe I can get some of the, thinking back to Mr. Guy's questions, I'll try to answer some of them in probably a broad way. One, as far as the rental program with the CDBG money, the rental assistance program, that actually has been extended. I will tell you that much like the grant program for business support, there have not been many applications for the rental assistance. However, that program has been extended. It's still, the application is still available on our website. If you qualify for rental assistance, the qualifications are not established by Franklin Township, but they are established by the federal government. That's a HUD-sponsored program, and you have to meet the HUD requirements for the application. So that's still available on our website. As far as the CARES Act funding, I would love to know if there will be additional CARES Act funding coming. I would hope that there will be additional CARES Act funding coming, but until the federal government acts, I don't know. That's where it comes from. The money that the Township of Franklin received was a pass-through from the state of New Jersey because Somerset County did not qualify based on its size for direct funding from the federal government. So the state enacted legislation to include the counties in New Jersey that did not qualify for direct funding and shared state funding with those counties. The money that Franklin Township received, that money is used as a reimbursement for costs associated with the COVID response by the township. So that money, and we did receive our full amount. That money was received at the end of December from the state after a review of all of our expenditures. So that's what that money was used for this time around. Planning, master plan. I'm not going to go into any great depth. I know that there's been discussion with Mr. Guy before about this. The master plan is a product of the planning board, not the council. So as far as any work on the master plan or anticipation for the completion of the update to the master plan, those are better directed to the planning board. And I don't recall anything else. Mr. Mayor, do you remember any others that I'm missing here?
No.
Okay. If there are, well, then we'll I'm sure I'll get them next meeting. I'll watch the tape. The only other thing I have to report is, and Councilman Embarrasson mentioned some activities with the Recreation Department. The Recreation Department currently has an online survey for the residents to give input on the online programs that they're currently running. It's available on our website. If anyone is either participating in our online recreation programs or might be interested in online recreation programs, I encourage you to go to the website and complete the survey. Take a couple minutes, and the recreation staff would greatly appreciate it. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. My dogs were having words with each other. That's why I went off screen for a second. One of the side effects of Zoom meetings. Council discussion item is next. We have none. Approval of the minutes. I present the following minutes to the Township Council for approval. Township Council work session regular minutes, work session regular meeting, January 5th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And the special meeting on January 12th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Do I have a motion on the minutes?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion, any corrections? Madam Clerk?
Councilman Barrison,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
The next item are the warrants, the bills we pay. Warrants in the amount of $5,252,616.02 on January 26, 2021, are presented to the Township Council for payment. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Anyone want to pull an item or question an item? Hearing and seeing none. Madam Clerk?
Councilman Barrison,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
Okay, we are now on to public hearing and adoption of ordinance. On second reading, there are none. Item number 13, ordinance on introduction and first reading, ordinance 4336-21, as referenced before by Councilman White. An ordinance amending the Renaissance 2000 redevelopment plan to establish land use plan requirements for a comprehensive development of the Churchill Millstone redevelopment area. The foregoing ordinance presented to Township Council for adoption and first reading, posting, and publication in accordance with law, and public hearing, and a final adoption at a virtual meeting of the Township Council to be held via WebEx on Tuesday, March 23rd, 2021 at 7 p.m. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. So to start the discussion, Mr. Healy has been patiently waiting. If you could teach us about this ordinance.
Sure. And I'll give a general overview since it's in the introduction. And I think Councilwoman Francois basically hit all of the main points. This ordinance came as a result of a rather prolonged negotiation on the part of the redevelopment agency with RPM, who is the designated redeveloper of the Churchill Millstone area. That redevelopment agreement resulted in a number of changes to the plan for that portion of the redevelopment area. It resulted in reduced density, as the councilwoman said, from 50 units to the acre to 28 units to the acre. Incorporated specific open space requirements. There is a detailed open space plan, a parcel by parcel plan for open space. And then on top of that, a 20% requirement as well that kind of go hand in hand. There is a emphasis on, the redevelopment agency wanted more of an emphasis on having a mixed income community. So as you may be aware, the redevelopment area has been developed with predominantly affordable housing, which certainly helps the township's affordable housing obligation, but there's a desire on the part of the redevelopment agency to have, along with the affordable housing, a good mix of market rate housing. So that was incorporated into the agreement. And then there's also a desire historically, or what RPM has developed so far has been mostly in the form of multi-story and 3 to 4 story apartment buildings. And there was a desire to have lower density housing types also permitted in the area. So the redevelopment agency again, had about a year-long negotiation with RPM. That was incorporated into a redevelopment agreement that was adopted by the agency about a year ago. And then what this ordinance does is basically incorporates all of those elements into the ordinance. So the same things that I just spoke about, reducing the overall density almost in half, incorporating the the specific parcel by parcel open space plan and that 20% open space requirement, having a mix of affordable housing with 20% affordable, 80% market rate, and having, again, a mixture of housing types, not just the stacked apartment buildings, but having apartment buildings and also lower density townhomes and other things like that, as opposed to, the 30 or 40 units to the acre or higher apartment buildings that we've had. So that's in essence the nature of the ordinance that's before you. And it's in your agenda packet with the associated, there's a number of exhibits that will be incorporated into the ordinance that illustrate these different themes that we want incorporated into the ordinance.
Anyone have questions for Mr. Healy? So does this affect any of the businesses in the area? The redevelopment area?
Well, it's well, I'd say that I don't think it would impact them any differently than it does now. I mean, it's not incorporating any additional areas. This is the existing Churchill Millstone redevelopment area. There are a few properties on the periphery that have been recently developed that are actually proposed to come out. There's a few parcels, again, that are on the periphery of the redevelopment area that aren't required for the development of their overall plan. So, those two of them happen to be business uses, so they may see that as a benefit.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Healy? Any comments?
I see. So as I'm reading through this again, I see that what we list as our mixed-use development, the stores. I guess my kind of facetious here, but are we seeing any video stores coming back at this point? Has Blockbuster brought to us that they'd like to come back into Franklin? I say that because, and kind of joking, but at the same time, is there any type of store that we've now precluded from this, that since we're updating this, is there something that we should be adding to the list by any chance, or is this pretty general enough to encompass everybody that's approached us to want to be in that area?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what you're speaking of is there's a portion of that talks about the permitted commercial uses on the first floor, and it does list as a very specific list of different types of retail establishments, including some like a video store that probably aren't coming back. But then the last line says other uses of similar nature and intensity. So if there was some type of retail store that sold widgets, I'm obviously making up something, but it was truly a retail store that sold directly to the public, that would be a permitted use, just by virtue of the fact that it falls within the same nature of a gift store, flower shop, electronics shop, et cetera, et cetera. Retail is retail.
Okay, yeah, I mean, one that I guess wasn't as prevalent as it is now is more like a shipping store or something like that. But I guess that could go under office supplies, if anything. But again, I just wanted to make sure that we're not, since we are that we're covering, we're making sure all change is needed, and we're not excluding any businesses. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I would like to thank through the course of Mr. Healy being on our redevelopment agency as our executive director, he has taken us to a great place. I'd be the first one to admit that Mr. Healy has done great work for the redevelopment agency. As you just noticed with the space agreement, that in and of itself was hard work, and I know because we've been there for a while. So I would just like to say thank you to Mr. Healy for moving us along, moving the agency along. And that's it.
Thank you, Councilman.
And then briefly, for people who don't know, the redevelopment area is very roughly between Hamilton Street and Route 27 north of Franklin Boulevard. For those watching, is that a reasonable description of where this area is? Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Okay. All right, if there are no other comments, we have already moved and seconded it for, this is a motion to introduce at a public hearing. If there's no other discussion, Madam Clerk?
Councilman Barrison,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
All right, the next ordinance is 4337-21, an ordinance providing for an amnesty period for the disconnection of sump pumps and other drains from the Township of Franklin sanitary sewer system. This is an add-on. The foregoing ordinance is presented to the Township Council for adoption on first reading, posting, publication in accordance with law and public hearing and final adoption at a virtual meeting of the Township Council to be held via WebEx on Tuesday, February 9th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Councilman Galtieri, you would know more about this than I do, so why don't you explain it?
Yep. So I will start with the add-on. This was solely just last week was busy at work and I missed the agenda meeting. So there was no intention of getting this at the last minute. It was just a timing. But this ultimately what this is we are noticing the authority is noticing an influx of clean water during storm system during events. And we can go anywhere from, in one area alone, anywhere from about 300,000 gallons is a normal to 1.3 million gallons being flushed, which easily can be related to some pumps pumping into the sanitary sewers. The ultimate goal here is not to penalize residents that may have bought a house that had a pre-existing connection. It's to identify and try to get the stormwater out of the treatment system, because ultimately we're paying to treat clean water, which affects then the ratepayers. In doing this will hopefully keep the rates where they are and not overwhelm the system during storm events. And again, this is to try to have residents come out and identify it if they do have one, and work with the residents just like we've done in other situations to reroute stormwater into the proper catch basins and everything. So the intent here was to, once this goes into effect, have the authority start reaching out to residents in certain neighborhoods that we've identified and see if we can work with them over next 18 months or longer to get the sump pumps or any other storm drains into the proper systems.
Okay, any other comments? Mr. Councilman Anderson and Councilman Galtieri, commissioners of the sewage authority, are they able to vote on this?
Yes, they are, Mayor. This is a township ordinance and regulation, and other than the fact that it was recommended by the sewage authority, there's no conflict for them.
Okay, great. Any other comments? Madam Clerk?
Councilman Barrison,
Yes.
Councilman Chase,
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois,
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri,
Yes.
Mayor Kramer,
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella,
Yes.
Councilman Wright.
Yes.
We're now on to the consent agenda. Items A through N, as listed in the consent agenda portion of this meeting, are presented to the Township Council for adoption. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion moved and seconded. Anyone like to pull an item or question an item? Hearing no discussion, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Harrison?
Yes.
Chase? Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Chaka?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pruitt?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
Next item of resolution is to be voted on separately. There are none. And then we have old business, 2021 boards, committees, commissions, vacancies. Do we have any nominations?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I would like to our redevelopment agency that we just talked about. I would like to nominate Patrick J. Shimella, and I'll spell his last name for you, Madam Clerk. Shimalla, just to make sure I don't want to pronounce it wrong. A resident of Franklin Township, member of various committees, including the Cedar Hill Cemetery, which some of you may or may not know where it's located. Fire member, commissioner, does a lot of business in Franklin Township as far as developing it. I believe he would be a welcome member and expand the concept of redevelopment here in Franklin Township. Our member that just passed, Robert Mettler, gave us the information that we needed to go as backdrop because he was here for so long. He gave us the insight. I believe Patrick will sort of fill that role since he has been here and is a lifetime member. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for that position?
Not for that position, but for what I believe is the second vacancy. Should that be done separately?
No, I think we could do them together.
Okay, I'd like to nominate Martin Piccoli to fill this other spot. The two open spots on the redevelopment agency. Also either lifelong or very long-term resident of Franklin. Very knowledgeable in the area of large projects of construction projects.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations for either of those two positions?
Mr. Mayor, I like to, not for these positions, but there's a third, another person I would like to recommend to the zoning board.
So why don't we hold off on zoning board, we'll stick with redevelopment now. Any other for redevelopment?
I move that the nominations be closed.
So move.
Second.
Second, all in favor of closing nominations, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Nominations are closed. So, I guess we'll need both of them. Otherwise, you can name one and say no to the other. Oh, I'm sorry. But let's just do this by acclamation. And I means that you're doing both of them. A nay we'll have to delve into. All in favor of these two nominations, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Congratulations to both of you. Councilman Amberson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'd like to propose Dr. Christine Vedas, the zoning board. She's recently from ExxonMobil, eminent scientist, longtime president of Franklin Township. We believe that she would be an excellent addition to the zoning board.
Okay. With people not talking mute, we have some background noise there. And could you restate his name? That was, it was muffled.
Dr. Basim Firdaus. Firdaus is the last name. Vasim, Vaseem is the first name.
Any other nominations for the same position? Hearing none, we can do it by acclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Congratulations. Are there any other nominations?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to nominate for the planning board Sami Shaban of Woodfield, down in my end of town, who is
Okay.
an attorney and an advisor to nonprofit organizations.
We won't hold being an attorney against him. Any other nominations for that same position? Hearing none, we can do it by acclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Congratulations. Any other nominations for any other positions? Hearing and seeing none, there is no executive session. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.